Schwarz, who's always behind the scenes, now takes an interview. This is a lot of fun. We talk about parents, sports, raising kids faithfully, Lutheran new media. Jeff Schwarz, the man behind Issues, Etc. Here's a conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Jeff Schwarz. Schwarz? Oh, Jeff Schwarz. Did you like it when I missed the last name? I was just doing that for you.
You did it on purpose because Will can get your name wrong on purpose, passively, aggressively get your name wrong, I think.
Jeff Schwarz is a producer of Issues, Etc., the premier Lutheran educational, new media, everything. I'm so glad to be a part of it. And also now Jeff is I was listening to the episode of listener email. I like to listen to the listener email because I want to hear if people are complaining about the stuff that we're talking about. And you were talking about, what's that?
You and one other person like to listen to listener email.
And you guys were talking about Jeff Schwarz, JS Ministries, is it? Or?
JS Ministries, yes.
Because you wrote this article for the Lutheran Witness, which was one of my life goals, by the way. I had 3 life goals, and one of them was to publish an article in the Lutheran Witness. It's the only one I've met so far. So that's great. You've kicked that off the bucket list on Christian parenting. So I thought I want to play along and nail down that interview with JS Ministries. So thanks. I got a hold of your people who got a hold of your people's people, and then we got it on here. So
yeah, you're important. Our family just got back from vacation at 3 a.m. this morning, and so that's how vitally important you are to JS Ministries. I
want to talk about 3 things. The article. I got a theory about the article that you wrote, and then kind of the gospel on the internet and your work with Issues, Etc. So I'm going to kind of press in that direction. So first, you wrote a really helpful article that basically says that sports are great, but not greater than the divine service. So this is a complaint that pastors have had for a long time, and that is that sports have just spilled over onto Sunday morning, and especially the better you get at sports, the higher the likelihood is that it's Sunday morning that you have to play on. And so kids are not coming to church and to catechism class. Families are missing because they're going to play sports. So thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, as I alluded to in the Lutheran Witness column, I'm not anti-sports. I love sports. It's a gift that we can abuse. I think what's happened is the more secular our culture has become, Sunday mornings are no longer sacred in the eyes of the world and the eyes of the culture. And so Sunday mornings are being occupied with soccer games and basketball tournaments and all kinds of different sporting events. And we have our 2 oldest children of 5, both played college sports. And we got wrapped up in the, select sports, I would call it racket. They were both, very, pretty good athletes. And from early on, they were being recruited to play on different coaches contact us to have them play on their select teams. And we got on that treadmill, and we did the best we could as parents. We always looked for confessional Lutheran churches in the area, contacting the pastor that we'd be visiting and doing the best we could when they were having games on Sunday. But we came to realize that we're not going to do this with the younger 3 children, and 2 of whom are the 2 youngest boys are pretty good athletes too. But we just decided that we need to prioritize what's most important. And as I alluded to as well in the column, I'm always telling our children, pursue faithfulness, not happiness. And so sports can give you some temporary happiness, but Christ calls us to be faithful, and to be faithful unto death, and I will give you a crown of life. And so we learned that, by trial and error, that we're just not going to do that with our other 3 children.
This is so helpful, Joe. It seems like, so idolatry is always, it's not like, like the devil like jumps up in front of the road and says, bow down and worship this football or whatever. But it's like one decision, a little decision, it's here. And then all of a sudden you realize, wait, we've been traveling for basketball games and we've missed church for 3 weeks. It's like it sneaks up on you. And so you have to sort of like stop and recalibrate and say, where's our priority here as a family?
Yeah, I just caution parents to get off usually your local community have a little league or something like that. Those are much more YMCA leagues. If you stay in those recreational leagues, you're going to, you'll have less of these kind of conflicts on Sunday mornings. And I'll be honest with you, you'll have a lot more family time, a lot more time to spend, as we call Jesus time, with your family, with Christ and his word, and a lot less stress of schedules. And it's not just the time that these weekend tournaments and games take, it's the practices during the week as well.
But Jeff, my son is going to be an Olympian and my daughter's going to play professionally.
Right.
How could you? This is my hope now for my retirement too, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's very tempting. But if you look at the statistics, I think it's 2% of high school athletes will ever get some kind of college scholarship. But keep in mind that even minor sports at Division I levels don't give full ride scholarships. And, that's the highest level, the Division I sports. So, a case in point, Justin, at a NAIA school, there's Division I, there's Division II, NAIA, and then there's Division III. Division III can't offer any scholarship compensation for athletics. But NAIA, I think, can give you like $10,000. Okay, but this is a private school where the tuition's like $40,000. It's like really. And then both of them had junior college full ride scholarships, but those aren't the nothing against junior colleges, but it's not like that's the academic standards are going to be high there. And when you're playing sports, these coaches, that's their top priority is to win. That's how they keep their jobs. So, you doing well academically isn't their top concern or priority.
Mm-hmm. We do have, I think what the first, and you said this is a first commandment issue. I think that's really nice, is that we fear, love, and trust in God above all things. And it's not like, okay, God is here, and then like academic success and athletic success and all these other things are like right underneath it. No, it's, you should fear, love, and trust in God above all things. And then everything else has to really take a back seat to that, so that the first commandment is more than just kind of ordering the list. It's giving these priorities too, that it's hard to be faithful, especially for the kids. It's hard to be faithful. And so that has to be our number one priority, and everything else has to serve that, even if it's hard, even if they don't want to,
Yeah, absolutely. How many parents complain we don't have family meals anymore? Mm-hmm. And, part of that is the schedule. Look, it's not just sports. Music can be an idol. Academic pursuit can be an idol. We're going to send our kids to every summer chess camp possible, or, some special college credit math summer course so they can excel academically. And, we can take just about anything and turn it. We can take anything and turn it into an idol.
Or going to a college that doesn't have a faithful congregation nearby. Well, that's the best college I can get into, but there's no faithful preaching nearby. We'll go to the worst college you get into that has faithful preaching. It's more important.
Well, that's funny, because Justin, our oldest, recently graduated from Corey, Chicago, and he's done tons of job interviews and turned down a few jobs. But I'm always telling him, like, hey, is there a good, faithful Lutheran church nearby?
Well, and I was thinking about that too as you were talking, because this is becoming a problem more and more, because the work patterns that we used to have even 20 years ago, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 kind of thing, that's breaking down more and more and more. And so more and more people have to work on Sunday morning. So the insights from your article, how would you apply them to that situation as well?
As far as finding?
Yeah, or just like, Pastor, I'm sorry I can't come to church. I got to work. I got called in this morning. My job is on Sundays, or What do you do about
Well,
that?
I'm blessed in a congregation where they also have Saturday night service.
Yeah.
And I know some congregations have Saturday night and Monday.
I've been thinking about that. We can no longer assume that having Sunday morning service, it's still the time that's most available for most people, but it's not for all people. And it's just a 24/7 work schedule now, so that the church, I think you're right, needs to adjust to that.
Yeah, I mean, but we all need to make. We say this all the time. Our lives flow from the divine service. It's a central focus of what we do as Christians and who we are as Christians. And if that's the case, then we need to make it the top priority. And whatever we can do to clear out our schedules should and ought to be done.
I have a theory that I want to run. I'm interested to hear what you think about this. So for a long time, we've been complaining about the idolatry of athletics and sports in our culture, and wondering why. I've been wondering why the Lord sort of permits it to run. So, I mean, to become such an obsession for us. But I'm not wondering now if the fact that the biggest obstacle to the transgender ideology is our obsession with sports, if the Lord was setting it up this way. Because it's an amazing thing to me that the hardest opposition to transgender ideology comes from the sports realm, and the kickback from, for example, like there's a power lifter who's a guy who's going to lift in the ladies powerlifting, or even as Jenner is running for governor of California and says that transitioned men shouldn't compete with women, and now he's considered they're considered transphobic. So that we've set up these kind of, now these two ideologies are now clashing against one another. Do you have any thoughts on that? So that while sports has been for a long time the enemy of the preaching of the gospel, it's turning out to be our friend, in the sense that it was the place where the distinction between men and women was most clearly embraced by our culture.
Yeah, maybe it's the province of God working in the left-hand kingdom to show the nonsense, the foolishness of secular progressivism. Mm-hmm. That, it's tempting to imbibe some of what they're saying superficially on the surface, but then when it gets to a boy beating my daughter in the 100-meter dash, maybe God's using that to wake people up, for lack of a better term, get them woke to wokeness, and to just see the bottom line is, this progressive ideology doesn't work. It's not commonsensical. It sounds great. It's like socialism or communism. It sounds great theoretically, but when you start realizing that man is sinful, and you try to raise a family based on this ideology or this philosophy. And I always think that, Christians are called anti-science. I mean, you can't get more anti-science than this transgenderism stuff. And so, there's this large group of people in the middle who, one of the reasons they're in the middle, they just want peace, right? I just want to raise my kids. I just want peace and tranquility. But an issue like this kind of gets them off the sidelines, because now it hits home. Mm-hmm. And now we have boys winning, these awards in girls' sports. And, if you really want to carry progressive ideology out to its logical conclusion, there would be no boys or girls sports. There'd be one sport. Mm-hmm. There shouldn't be separate entities. They should just be and survival of the fittest. But you don't hear anybody advocating for that. In that case, that's more the feminist camp. If you want true equality and to no longer have these gender differences or sex differences, then there shouldn't be women or men's sports.
This is a rare, but you love to be behind the scenes. I mean, even when you guys are doing your show and you have to read the emails you hate. So this is I think, I appreciate you, Jeff. I mean, just talking, because you and I talk all the time, and you are really paying attention to theology and to culture and to the things that are going on. You've been working, producing issues, etc., for 30 years now. 40 years? How long have you been?
It'll be, I think 95 is when I started. So I don't know if
that's coming up on 30 years. Well, 26 years or something like that. So you've been doing this for a long time, and paying attention. And I always appreciate your insights on this sort of thing. But maybe if you, so what, as you've been working on inserting theology into the public conversation and getting our Lutheran distinctives out there into the media ecology of the world, what have you seen? What's been the biggest changes you've observed in the last generation or so?
In the culture or the Lutheran Church?
I think both. I'd love to hear about how who we were preaching to. And, at first it was like, hey, all you evangelicals need to learn about the Lutherans. And I suppose that's the case. But then, hey, this pagan culture needs to hear about God's ordering of things. But I mean, I'll hone the question down. What do you think has been the biggest success of Issues, etc.?
I would say our program, there's a lot of podcasts and a lot of new media ventures out there. Ours is systematic. It's in Lutheran theology systematic. It's not like, your typical non-denominational church where you have 12 beliefs and this is what we believe, teach, and confess. I mean, we have the scriptures, we have the Book of Concord. And so what we're offering is the whole counsel of God. And so so I'll just give you an example. Today's show, we're doing a series with Dr. Gene Evergreen. His third edition of his great book, The Spirituality of the Cross, was just recently published by Concordia Publishing House. And we're doing a series on Lutheran spirituality with him. We're interviewing Dr. Ben Mays from Concordia Theological Seminary on Luther and Lutheran Orthodoxy on usury, loans, interest, things like that. It's a topic we've never covered in depth in all my years of doing it. I always like talking about something we haven't talked about before. Pastor Tom Baker will be leading us in a Sunday school lesson as he does each and every Tuesday. I just got back from vacation, so we're not up on the newsy stuff. The Supreme Court's taken an important abortion case from the state of Mississippi that we're looking to get a guest on that topic. And so we cover everything from the left-hand kingdom and the right-hand kingdom, in which, of course, God rules in both realms. And I think that's what makes it unique, is that it's systematic. It's not just, we're not, you talked about like we're just, burnt out evangelicals. We have a series with Jordan Cooper on responding to Calvinist proof text, with Stephen Parks of Concordia Irvine on responding to Roman Catholic proof text. We do regular shows on Mormonism, atheism, agnosticism. So we're covering, we always say expert guests, expansive topics, extolling Christ. So we have expansive topics. And I think that's one of the things that makes us unique. But we have expert guests. We bring on the best people possible to talk about the subjects that our listeners are interested in, like Brian Wolfmueller.
I know you're trying to find a replacement. So
No.
So I know you hear from people who are like, I think, as far as I could tell, that you guys are the main engine of not only theological education, but perhaps even conversion of people becoming Lutheran. I know, as I meet people who are coming into the Lutheran confession, the Lutheran faith, there's different endpoints and there's different people who influence. Chris Roseborough, Jordan Cooper, both big funnels. Jonathan Fisk and his, I mean, especially his legacy stuff was a huge influence on a lot of people, but you guys are always part of the mix. Every time part of the mix. They get hooked into one way or another into issues, etc. And I know that you hear from these people too, and that they tell you they're hearing something different when they engage in issues, etc., than any other sort of new media. What are the reports that you're getting there?
Well, I think, first of all, as we're all both aware of, is that a lot of people don't know much about Lutheranism. They know evangelicalism, Catholicism, maybe, Eastern Orthodoxy, Calvinism, but a lot of people don't know much about Lutheranism, or what they do in the case of, like Craig Parton will tell you, they thought we were mainline liberal Protestants because the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America is so much bigger and more prominent here in America. So, it's kind of shocking to hear what they hear because, if they've never even heard of Lutheranism, to realize, okay, so we don't ordain women. We believe in inerrancy and inspiration of Scripture. We take the Bible very seriously. And, so that's something that, people are kind of shocked to hear because they've already had preconceived notions of what Lutherans believe, teach, and confess. I think that, we hear from people from all different types of heterodox Christian confessions because we're not just talking to one group. And, we're pointing out errors across Christendom and outside Christendom. We have some of the greatest Christian apologists like John Warwick Montgomery, our regular guest. I'm humbled to produce a show because John Montgomery is huge. I mean, he is literally, a lot of people don't know this, younger people, he is huge. And he's committed to what we're doing, that if we get in a bind, say, hey, I need somebody on to talk about, something Christopher Hitchens said, or a new atheist said, he'd drop what he's doing and come on and be a part of the conversation. So, so a lot of times the non-Lutheran people find out, it's like, oh, this Roman Catholic responding, my Lutheran friend sent me this thing on Roman Catholic proof text on, papal infallibility or something or other. And what we do is we purposely cut the show up into different topics and guests. A lot of podcasts, like here's our 2-hour today's show. Maybe they'll put a time stamps, like 15 minutes. We're going to talk about responding Roman Catholic proof text with Stephen Parks. But we cut them up. We cut it up by topic and guest. So it makes it easier to share what they're trying to convey to their non-Lutheran friends.
Yeah. That's actually a subtle thing, but it's really fantastic because it makes your content evergreen. So most new media stuff, like you put a video on YouTube especially, but podcasts too, it just is a huge drop off and then you have a tail. But I mean, to be able to categorize your stuff like you've done, to tag it like you've done, so that, I mean, whenever I'm recommending resources for people, I just search issues, etc., on whatever topic, I mean, end times, or I did this morning, rapture. I searched for rapture or and whatever, and here's 10, 20 results. It's like a seminary on demand that's there. And like you said, the people are great. It's so you're building this huge library of resources, which is phenomenal. I mean, and every day it gets 2 hours more. I mean, it's just, do you know how many hours of stuff you guys have?
I have no idea, but let me go back to what you said earlier. I mean, I think of all the great theologians who are now in the church triumphant.
Mm-hmm.
And like the great Paul McCain from Concordia Publishing House, our series, I don't know how many episodes it was on the Book of Concord. And of course, he was general editor of Concordia Lutheran Confessions. Louis Brighton, series on Revelation, on the Holy Family, Ron Feuerhahn, Norman Nagel. And what is is it, I guess it's the Te Deum, the Starkey Te Deum, talking about their deathless voices raise, or the Clement Preuss, the sainted Clement Preuss. When I listen to our 24/7 talk station, and there's Clement still teaching God's word to people. It's amazing, and but it also makes me long more to want to see them again. And thanks to the work of Christ, we will.
Yeah, God be praised. That's phenomenal.
But it gets harder to produce because these are friends. I mean, we lose really, really good. They're not just guests on the show. You get to know them. You get to know their secretaries. You get to know their wives and families. And I always say, if I taught a course on producing, make good with church secretaries and pastors' wives. And, but
is that your strategy by always talking about what Carrie's making for dinner? That's the
yeah. Well, we don't want to go there because that's a negative. I think I'm committing a grave error because I'm doing your wife's cooking, which I shouldn't be doing.
I know. We cannot wait. I mean, Carrie is just counting the days until you finally come to dinner, and she's going to give you a hot dog, I think wrapped up in a piece of Wonder Bread, while she gives everyone else steaks and whatever.
How did that come about anyway? How did I start making fun of her cooking? I don't even remember.
I don't know. You asked what's for dinner one time, and Carrie was, I don't know, we were just getting fast food one night. You know how this goes or something. I'm not sure how that works. But every time Carrie says, "Oh, Jeff, tell him I made salad with what," she's always, in fact, if she finds out we're on the phone, dinner gets fancier. What do you think's coming next? So the world is kind of going nuts. You quoted Carl Trueman, this book, The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, in your article. I think it's a really insightful book, but it doesn't even, man, I wish, have you had him on the show yet?
Yes. Yeah. We did about an hour interview with him on that book.
I need to because I think that's a helpful book, but man, I wish he was Lutheran because he doesn't get to the kind of Gnostic center of the heart of the phenomenon of the ideology. But so we're in the midst of the world that's kind of, well, and you're paying attention to Rod Dreher, who I stood next to at the conference a couple years ago, and some of his stuff and the way that the culture is going and the way that it's responding to the world. What do you see coming next, and maybe advice for Christians, pastors and fathers and Christians, as we sort of navigate the world falling apart? What are your thoughts, and what are you guys doing there? I mean, I know some of the things, but
well, first of all, I think there were people in our church body who were trying to tell us that postmodernism would be good for Lutheranism, and they're dead wrong. And we said it. Some of them were critical of Jean Edward Wies's Postmodern Times book. I recall the original host of the show, Don Matzik. I mean, he delivered the convention, Lutheran Church Missouri City Convention speech in 1998. He was a convention essayist where he really went off on postmodernism. And he said, look, it will not benefit us. We have the whole book of Congress said we believe this and we reject this. Well, postmodernism doesn't want you to reject things. You determine your own truth, and it's true for you, but not for me. And so I remember him warning people regularly on the radio program that this was a damnable ideology. And it wasn't going to be, it would help more the non-denominational kind of touchy-feely churches who have 12 things that they ask you to believe to become a member, but not confessional historic church bodies. And so I think what we're seeing are the seeds of postmodernism played out in academia and other parts of our culture. And now we're bearing the fruits of it. And Don Matthew say, I'd rather have a mainline liberal Protestant tell me I'm wrong or miracles don't happen, then a postmodern agnostic, it's like, well, if you want to believe that, that's fine, but it doesn't work for me. I'd rather have somebody tell me I'm wrong. And one thing, we interviewed the late Robert Schuller on this program, and I remember telling the host at that time, Todd Wilkin, of course, our current host, saying, "You're wrong." Just like, "You're wrong." And God bless him for it. I mean, of course we thought he was wrong. But I'd rather have somebody tell me I'm wrong than to
Robert Schuller said that to Wilkin?
Yeah.
What was he saying?
He was saying, like, he was like, he said something like, "Well, I hope you don't tell your people every Sunday they're sinners." And Todd said, "Yes." Well, not only that, we begin the service. I was saying, "I am a poor, miserable sinner." And then he proceeded to tell him why that was damaging. And he just told Todd he was wrong. He's wrong. But so anyway, I think we're seeing the fruits of postmodernism carried out to its logical conclusions, where now I have my truth, or we send our kids to college to not look like that. Such a thing of that objective truth actually exists. I mean, there are so many people in our culture, elites in our culture, that don't believe there's such thing as objective truth. Of course, they believe that statement is objectively true. So as far as where all this is headed is, I don't know. I'm neither a prophet nor a son of a prophet, but it's rampant, and it's an opportunity for us to confess both God's law and his gospel, as we have for more than 2,000 years.
That's great. It's always, I think it's good. I'm very optimistic. I might be the only one. I'm very optimistic that the culture is shifting in such a way that the gospel is going to kind of come back into tune for a lot of people. A lot of people that just can't, that it sounds dissonant. It all of a sudden will sound beautiful, but I could be wrong too. But.
I hope you're right. I think that, we just have to be faithful, and we proclaim and share God's law and gospel wherever we're at, and let God be God.
That's great. Hey, Jeff, this is great. I really appreciate your time. What do you want to plug? LPR, so Lutheran Public Radio, lpr.org, issues, etc., issuesetc.org. Conference is coming up this summer. How's that looking? We're still at max. We got more space?
Well, we opened up, but now I think we can go up to 360 now because of Governor Pritzker, the Illinois governor's. I think we have us in a bridge phase 4 opening, whatever that means. So yeah, the conference, you're going to be speaking there.
So there's more spots? I know that people, I was talking to people and they're like, "Oh, it's full, so we're not going to go," but there's more spots.
Well, it was full because we could only take so many in-person people.
Yeah.
Based on the whole COVID and what the Governor Pritzker had to say. So
that's good.
We've got room for more people now. And that's Friday, July 23rd, Saturday, July 24th at Concordia University, Chicago. You're speaking. Mark and Molly Hemingway are speaking. Robert George at Princeton University will be speaking. Larry Rass, president of your alma mater, Concordia Theological Seminary, will be speaking on American revivalism. Jack Phillips, the Colorado Baker, your old stomping grounds, Masterpiece Cake Shop, he'll be speaking there as well. And we'd love to have more people show up and at Concordia University Chicago for the premier conference for Christian Lady. It's such a, the confessions talk about the mutual consolation of the brethren. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's meeting people around the world and fellowship, altar fellowship, but just fellowship.
Yeah. That's great. I love it.
Pastor Whedon's hymn sing Pastor Will Whedon's hymn sing that he leads every year. It is one of the highlights. There's matins, there's evening prayer, there's the divine service. It closes with the divine service. There's just sitting around the conversations at the people lunch and dinner is just people go back refreshed, renewed, refocused. And we love doing it. It's a great opportunity for Christian lay people and pastors, and we'd love to see you at Concordia Chicago. And you're speaking next year too. That's how much we love you. We already got you lined up for 2022.
That's right. I can't wait for that. My favorite thing about the conference is watching Wilkin interact with all the people. He's such an introvert, so he's kind of he knows he has to. Most of the people are there to see him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
You're coming with your next in 2022 with your Albert Mohler is going to be speaking there.
My favorite.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Oh, the problem is I got to talk. I'd rather just hang out with, you'd make me the driver for Al Mohler. So. Hey, Jeff, I appreciate. I don't probably say this enough. I mean, I really appreciate you and the work that you do, the work that Todd does, the work that Craig does at Issues, etc. That you guys are, in some ways, a flagship, and in some ways, all of us. I mean, I kind of Lutheran New Media, for whatever it's worth, is like, I mean, we're just kind of riding your wake in a way, and I'm so grateful for the years of labor that you've put into the work. So thank you. And there's this little promise in Daniel where it says that it talks about those who lead many to salvation. They will shine like the stars in the heaven. And I know you're not in this for the reward of it, but that the stars that the Lord will have for you guys in heaven you'll just shine like the stars because of the work of proclaiming the truth. So thank you, and God be praised for that. And thanks for coming on. And
let me say one last thing. Thanks to you and faithful pastors on the front lines. You guys are the real heroes, and I honestly mean that. We can sit in a studio in little Collinsville, Illinois, and talk about cohabitation, and tell you from God's word why it's wrong. We don't have to sit across from the couple who are living together and call them to repentance and forgiveness. So the pastors, you guys are the heroes. And we always say, providing artillery support for the church militant on the front lines. That's the best we can do. But pastors in the parish, I know it's tough. I know it's frustrating. I know at times it can seem mundane. I know at times it can seem, is it really all worth it? But I say, yes, it is. And thank you for all the faithful pastors around the world for your faithful service and proclaiming repentance and the forgiveness of sins.
Well, thank the Lord for appointing for us this ministry. So what a great time. I mean, to be alive and to be serving in the Lord's church. So God be praised for that. Hey, thanks. And if you could send my thanks also to all the staff there at JS Ministries.
I think we just hired our 100th employee, and we're incorporating Oklahoma. Yeah. We're incorporating Oklahoma.
Well done. Thanks, Jeff. God be praised.
Take care. Thanks.
Thanks as always for being part of the fun. Got questions, stuff below, comment below. Wednesday Whatnot at wolfmueller.co/Wednesday. We'll see you soon. God's peace be with you.